This is really cool, Nkosi.
Yeah, that's actually my most meaningful item. The reason why I like that is because I hope to become a general surgeon one day, and medicine is one of my other passions.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Who's actually winning over there?
I like to say I'm winning, okay?
No, I am.
We're all winners over here.
Spoken like a true loser.
Wow. Christian, how good are you at taking photos?
Great. The best, actually, some would say. But let me tell you something about that. The resolution thing. I think it's important that we try to keep them realistic. Like, I know a lot of people nowadays, they just jump into something like, I'm going to lose 50 pounds a month. That's not sustainable.
I wish.
I think it's really important that we actually try to keep it realistic, you know? Start small. Some people give up sometimes. Like, when they realize they missed 1 week, they're like, you know what? Next year we can do it. But I think it's good to just realize that I'm better off now than I was earlier. You know, what do y'all think about that?
I think when you're thinking about a New Year's resolution, you shouldn't think about a specific end goal. What you should think about is constant progress, constant improvement. For example, my New Year's resolution, even though I want to beat Sarah chess one day, my New Year's resolution would be to get better at chess, to work on my openings, to work on my end game, etc., etc. But that's just my thoughts.
Getting good at chess was actually one of my New Year's resolutions probably around 2 years ago. And I'm quite happy to say, unlike a few of my resolutions, this was one of them that I actually fulfilled. But I think it's important to not set too many high expectations for yourself, because then it's more difficult to meet, and then in the end you'll just feel like a failure or maybe disappointed. So perhaps focus on the process rather than the end goal, and just have fun with it and try to take day by day, each step at a time, to try to fulfill it.
Keep it measurable.
On December 31st at 11:55, I start making my New Year's resolution, because I feel that sometimes when we plan things too far in advance, right, we
Much more
it's
pressure.
like much more pressure, and it gives you a harder time. I like to be spontaneous sometimes. As Jeremiah would have said earlier, we need to set realistic resolutions, right? And there's smart goals, the smart goal steps that we can use to set the resolution. So you can research it, and once we have a goal and a specific set of lineup that we want to use, our resolutions will not go to waste. So by the second week in January, we still have our resolutions. March, April, maybe November, December, our resolutions can be completed also.
Remember, at this point, when you're making the resolutions, things may change in the future, and so will your resolutions, so will your aspirations. So there's not much pressure on trying to fulfill them as much as trying to grow and develop as an individual.
I think also with the introduction of the internet and social media, you see all the time online, people at 16, 17, 18, 20 years old, they have 3 cars, a house, $1 million, etc., etc. And you feel sort of pressure. You tell yourself, oh, I'm going to make $1 million next year, when in reality, at 18, 19 years old, that's probably not going to be possible. You have to sort of block out these social media influencers who claim to have that much money, because they might be faking it for all we know, right?
And that's something I think also the pandemic, it kind of, it blocked out what you see with your own eyes, and so what you can only rely on recently is like social media, what's on your phone, what's on the internet, and so sometimes those things aren't realistic, and we kind of forget that, and we judge ourselves and put so much pressure on ourselves to be like other people, when their situation is completely different from ours.
Another thing, right, is that we must remain true to ourselves, right? We try to be you and not anybody else, because you can only be you.
I think going into 2022, a good New Year's resolution to have is to keep your mental health in check. Especially with COVID going on, you're in your house all day, either looking at some screen doing some work or looking at some screen watching Netflix or something. It can get a bit muddled in your brain at times. In fact, I recently heard that there have been increased levels of things like anxiety and depression among our youths ever since COVID started. So I think it's important that we keep ourselves in check physically and mentally, next year and throughout our lives, you know.
As you said, I think it's also due to obviously lack of socialization and the isolation and so on. And something I strive to do this year would be to, practice gratitude. I can be very pessimistic. I can be very cynical where I focus on all the negatives. Why isn't this happening? Why isn't this person on time? Why didn't I get here on time? Whereas I should be focusing on what is going right. And by doing that, by practicing gratitude, it will help your mental health. And I just feel like that's something that I really need to do and put into practice. So remind me, guys, whenever I'm saying, why is this not working? Please remind me.
We got you.
Yes, we will. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you guys. And, well, the year would have just started. And I hope that we can interact more throughout the entire 2022. We'll probably plan some trips. And we could video call, whatever. Count me in. And let this year be an awesome year for us.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well, Sarah.